audience to New Generation Women, and I'm Janine Fanzenos. We are back with the Global Love Warriors, and today we go with our guest from Scotland. She is a pure Wonder Woman. She is pure magic. She's pure joy, confidence, and power. And we had so much laughing already. I said, stop. We have to save this for the recording. She is a magician. That's her nickname. And she is also an interfaith minister. Here you're laughing already. Don't laugh so much. I have to concentrate and focus this intro, getting through this. So she's an ambassador of Marie Curie UK. She's an interfaith minister. And now comes a really important part. She's a mistress of ceremony and ritual. Hello and warm welcome. We come to the mistress part a little bit later, but hello and warm welcome to this wonderful, beautiful, powerful woman, Reverend Gail Love-Schock.
Oh.
I mean, that name is just like a brand. That's a perfume. That's a power perfume. What a kind of name, Reverend Gail Love-Schock. How does it happen?
Mission. It's like a mission and dharma and your mission statement all rolled into one. I mean, what can you do when you've got a name like that?
I mean, I saw, isn't there the movie out, The Wonder Woman? And I was like, this could be the next title of Reverend Gail Love-Schock, and then you have this sexy outfit on, this some kind of a weapon in your, like a love weapon, of course, in your right arm, and you just go. I mean, we need this. We need a Reverend Gail Love-Schock right now. We so need it. So what is happening in your country, in Scotland? You're not originally coming from Scotland, but you're living there quite a year, I think, with James.
Yeah. Well, no, I am. I'm originally from Glasgow in Scotland. So
I didn't know that.
Yes, so I am a Celt by trade. Both Scottish and Irish, which is lovely. And my husband is German, or from Stuttgart, and so that is where the shock comes from, essentially. So
it's so funny. It is a shock because Gail, I stayed with her for a few weeks in London a couple of years ago, and she got me a lift. She came to the airport with her husband James from Germany, and it was quite a shock to see him because he's so good looking. I was like, oh wow, holy cow! I mean, what a man. So okay, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No.
Wonderful choice.
Yeah, so in terms of being in Scotland and being home in Scotland, it was probably a year or so ago. Really, I felt as if the land invited me back home again, and and that's the fullest and richest and most honest way that I can say it. I just woke up one day and it was time to come home. It was just time to be back on Scottish soil and to be here to be able to contribute everything, that I've spent 40 odd years learning, essentially. And it just felt really good. It felt really good to come home. So we moved back end of October 2019. So we've been here kind of 4 or 5 months. And yeah, every day it's just a blessing to wake up and, look out at the loch and look at the trees and hear Scottish accents. And yeah, it's just a delight to be at home again.
I can see the shine on your face. So how is Scotland? I mean, you're shining. You're always shining. But I can see that, you really have moved forward into more power. And more power means not Wonder Woman in the movie sense. More power means, you have an inside power that is radiating outside without the muscles and the sexy outfit that is shown in movies. But seriously, coming back to Scotland, what is happening in Scotland? Because in Germany, the voices of people start to get louder. People are really getting tired of the lockdown, including myself. Voices of there's so much more beyond Corona are getting louder. And here in Germany, people are sometimes even afraid that we are losing democracy. And I don't say it's the truth. I don't know the truth, but I definitely feel there is some truth beyond the level of it, and people start feeling it. What's happening in Scotland?
I think it's quite layered what's happening here. Certainly where we are is very rural, for example, and also there's quite a lot of retired people, a huge amount of agriculture, and actually what we would think of as circular living is really thriving. The localism agenda, for example, is really becoming ever more prudent. So, for example, things like vegetable boxes being delivered to homes, even things like eggs being delivered to homes. We're seeing small groups of people really come together to be able to deliver prescriptions to older people or food shopping. And it's very relaxed, actually. It's very, very relaxed. This is also quite a wealthy area that we're in. So, you know, again, we're surrounded by water, we're surrounded by greenery. We also have a military base that's quite close to us. So in terms of what might feel like any acts of rebellion, you're just kind of like, it's not really worth it, you know, so because there's just just don't bother, just, you know, just focus on something much more interesting. If we move into the inner belt, for example, if we move into the cities, you know, certainly Glasgow, Edinburgh, up to Aberdeen, Dundee, in terms of what's happening there, I think because they are more populated areas, you know, children are missing their friends. There's certainly different conversations going on coming out of post-Brexit as well as to whether the Scottish independent government will continue with its conversation to rejoin the EU ultimately, and to kind of progress towards Scotland being an independent country. Interestingly, the entire health service in Scotland 2 or 3 years ago actually rehearsed for a pandemic and did
really
did quite poorly, which, and of course they would, because who was planning for this other than Bill Gates? You know, and so and as a result of that, actually healthcare, spiritual counselling, nursing, emergency services have had, you know, 24 to 36 months actually of really ramping up their training and ramping up what they're doing. So so Scotland seems to actually have been quite well prepared for what is happening. At the same time as that, though, we're definitely seeing families in isolation. So, for example, we do know that globally and certainly in Scotland, there's a spike in domestic violence. There's also a spike in people who are taking their life by suicide or death by suicide. And there's also just a general feeling of coming together, but there being a strain to a certain extent as well. So I think it's a very mixed picture, like politically and health-wise. We've even seen, you know, our Minister for Health had to resign because she was going to her holiday home in the north of Scotland and not actually following what she was telling the rest of Scotland to do, which was to stay in, as I'm calling it, independent retreat as opposed to lockdown. So that helps my mental health.
Bless you. Yes, I get that.
So yeah, so it's a colorful, you know, it's a colorful portrait. And again, we are quite you know, a country that has large areas that aren't very populated. If you go from where we are, you know, we start to go into the Highland Way, for example, you start to again go up into even deeper rural areas. You know, Scotland are essentially, we have the lungs, the Caledonian Forest. So this country is the lungs and the waterway of the entirety of the UK. In fact, most of the resource, you know, comes down and comes through the country. So again, there's probably more tree than people here, and you know, and kind of there's more farmers, more agriculture, and certainly from an employment place, it's really interesting. So Morrison's, a supermarket, a grocery store, have employed all of the Marie Curie staff up and down the country who would have been working in charity shops or thrift shops but are unable to because of the isolation. You know, the Cooperative, which is another supermarket, has employed, I think it's 5,000 people, and we're seeing an increase in delivery drivers that are being needed all the time. So, you know, fiscally and financially, money is moving around, but in a different way. Creativity is blossoming. Compassion is definitely more apparent as well. And I think that there's an understanding now that certainly any colleagues that I'm speaking with who have children, for example, there's much less sort of shushing, get out the way, mum or dad or carers on a work call, and much more like, this is Gail, we're talking about this today, and the kids are being like, okay, great, thanks, bye. So I think as well there's a real softening around this idea of when I start my day, when I finish my day, and then from a spiritual care point of view, there are a huge host of my colleagues, and everybody's providing the best services that they can right now as well.
Well, I don't know if that's the same in your country. What I see is a really shift between people living in on the landscape or living in little villages out there
Yes.
or living in a city.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking a week off and I'm going to the parents of my sweetheart because I was literally really, it was so narrow and people are here more irritated and aggressive in the city. And you have kids playing. So what we had happening, I mean, I totally understand. And I also wanted to touch base. I wanted to talk to those. I had a very young producer who said, Janine, I just had €10 left yesterday. I don't have money left. It's getting really narrow now in my pocket. And I felt really, really sorry for him because he's already so, he was just building up his business. And another woman, she's working at my doctor's office and she's a sweetheart. She has two little kids and they're both working at home also. And she said the one is 3 and, her husband has to really concentrate. And he normally is not working with kids or is with kids all the time. And they are in kindergarten. So suddenly they're there. They have a very normal flat in a city, like, not poor people, just average. And then the 3-year-old come and he is in a call and the 3-year-old just says, oh, can you print me this painting book? And he's like furious and say, and then he points out, I'm on the call, it's important. Oh, sorry, Daddy. I mean, that, and he is, if you have it all the time happening, you go bananas. The two of us, we don't have kids, but I can really literally feel the stress also of, and this woman is working at my doctor's office outside also, but she says, I'm so tense because we clash all the time. We are, we've never been together so much. And then we want to send the kids outside, but they cannot be loud because lots of people are working at home office. So then they're warned by the police. Then the second time they're walked home and then they are asked to take care of the kids. And if this is happening again, they pay €150 per kid. So I think this is a really tense situation. And that's why I'm leaving the city, because I was out there, there was on the land, nothing was there. You couldn't see people. And that's when you feel what you just shared. You feel the peace and the quiet, and you don't feel that anything is happening. But not everybody is so fortunate to leave the city. Mm-hmm. So coming to your work as an interfaith minister and as a spiritual mentor and teacher, are you also working with families and women, maybe single moms, who do not have care, who have to make their living by themselves, and they are out there more than we think? How are you guiding them through this phase?
It's a really good question. And to that, one of the services that I started to provide was a complementary online spiritual service, if you will. So on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. British Standard Time, I'm inviting anybody and everybody into Sanctuary, which is essentially an hour. It'll include some meditation. It'll include some tools. It'll also include community as well, and that even within the first night, there was a couple of hundred people who'd signed up. It's growing incrementally each week. It's really, really interesting what people are turning to, because anything that's happening in terms of or anything that's interrupting our peace, we just want to understand what that is as quickly as possible, and certainly Sanctuary is a space that is able to do that. In terms of one-to-ones, for example, again, in terms of spiritual counselling or even entrepreneurial business support, of which I've been able to, and again, it's my place and to take a positive advantage of my privilege in this instance, to be able to decrease, for example, costs of what a one-to-one would be for me, both for private spiritual support or indeed for business support. And the themes that are coming through, so I'm working with quite a lot of nurses, quite a lot of medical practitioners, quite a lot of other ministers and absolutely family people, but I think in terms of what's happening there is because of what I provide from a social media perspective, and also have I'm able to provide support there, then people are getting some of what I would call medicine. So again, that might be a tool or a tip or a meditation or an inquiry, or a reminder that it's absolutely okay to move through the emotional scale. We can absolutely move from sadness, depression, disconnection, and we're just looking for a slightly better feeling than that. I'm definitely not asking anybody to jump that enormous bridge from depression all the way up the piano to joy and total empowerment, because that will take practice. also what we're seeing as well is basically the concept of time travel. People are unsure, again, and uncertain in terms of this idea of when will it be over. From my point of view, I'm very much saying to people, treat this as this is it. When you wake up in the day, this is what's happening. That yesterday doesn't exist. A fortnight, a year from now, who knows? And this difference between ultimately this idea of facing reality or co-creating reality. So for me, I'm very interested in how I'm helping people to co-create their reality, which again means understanding their emotional scale and staying in a place of alignment, but equally allowing yourself to feel tired and distressed when that comes to you, not denying any of the feelings, but knowing that when our peace is interrupted, we will feel out of control. We will feel a bit discombobulated. And again, just coming back to very simple practices, 5 or 10 minutes of meditation in the morning, remembering to breathe. We're going to see a lot of things. One of them is, I'm pretty sure that more people will begin to smoke. Yes. I'm pretty sure that, because actually they want to take a breath. Yes. So there's and that's often why people smoke, because they think that's the only way to expand the diaphragm. So, so we're going to see that. We are also going to see more divorces. That is going to happen. We are going to see more separation. My work in that part is around that it's conscious. And that it's a conscious uncoupling, which might sound like quite a romantic notion, but actually, if we can complete in relationship in a really healthy way, it means that relationship therefore is complete. Aside that, we're definitely going to see a baby boom, and we're definitely going to see an increase in marriages as well.
I was wondering.
So it's just all going on.
And charmingly said, because I was wondering. I think in the beginning, people were like almost, lots of people and lots of my friends felt almost relieved, and they almost whispered like, I don't want to admit it, but I almost feel relieved that I'm out of the treadmill. I'm out of this pushing, traveling constantly. But now I think, and I thought like, whoa, I wonder if they do have a lot of sex right now. And then, then I thought, when I felt like now people start wanting to move again, now it starts to get married. And I was like, I'm sure that people do not even want to have sex right now. So that's what's going on in my mind, because I can almost feel that sense. But you're so right. And I think that too. I was just wondering 2 ways how you deal with it when people are coming up with this. And I tell you one example of myself, and I'm really curious how you deal with people who come up with a topic like existential fear, money fears. And I was really good in my bubble for 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And then really one of my biggest topics came up. And it came because I think just some money didn't arrive off my bank account, and it just didn't arrive. And that suddenly brought all of my old story up. I'm alone again. Here I'm not supported again. Here I'm not guided again. Here I have to do it all by myself again. It really was an emotional, because I had lived those stories for quite some time. And then I remembered, okay, all our stories will show up now. This is a really intense time that pushes the old stuff forward. And in my emotional state, I was able to step back and say, look at this with your spirit, look at it. Don't push it away. Don't go spiritual bypassing and just have a nice thought. Just pretend as everything is fine. Just give it what you also said, the space it needs, but don't dwell on it. Don't dive in it. Don't want to, dive so much into it that you want to kill yourself afterwards. Look at it and really give it, then you can say you give it to consciousness, to truth, to God, to a higher intelligence. I think this is what I literally did. I said, okay, I look at it. It's painful. And I really surrender to it, but not surrender that I cannot do anything or pretending as if I'm so abundant right now, but giving it right to a higher intelligence and ask for help and healing, and shifting that and clearing this from the roots finally, now and forever. And I could feel that. And I really literally, I couldn't swear it. I don't want to say, it was like magic. And suddenly I felt like, the Queen of England. But I definitely felt, I think it's helping. Something is helping in a minor way. And I felt like, just do it, just continue to do it. And it's one of my major topics, like being left alone and that not being taken care of comes out of childhood and you don't even know, have to know the roots, but I could really feel, okay, this is an old story, and now you step back and the old story comes up, and this is your chance to heal that. So what are you doing when people come up with fear issues around money?
Well, again, I think it's really important not to just even gleam over what you've shared there, that you've taken responsibility for evolving, for evolving where something that, as you said, where was bubbling up and presenting itself to you. And I think, that's also something I'm witnessing a lot of. Interestingly, at the moment, just before we get underneath that, I had launched a group program called Prosperity Unlocked at the start of the year, and which is about your total personal wealth. So what I'm doing right now is I am surrounded by people from all over the world. We've got Brooklyn, New York, Germany, we've got the whole of the UK, India, Australia, so there's people from all over the world saying, yes, absolutely, how do we do this? They're absolutely, they're in their experience of, okay, so there's fear around money, but the truth is the fear is never money, and money is never the thing. It is absolutely, as you were sharing there, it is that abandonment piece around it. What if I'm left on my own? What if there's nobody to take care to, I've had to do this, I see this often, and I've had it myself, what, it's always coming down to me, this is going to be up to me, it's going to be up to me, it's going to be up to me. But one of the most wonderful pieces of guidance from a spiritual lineage and teaching point of view is to say that the energy of money is actually freedom. So often we're focusing on money and the money that we don't have, but actually money doesn't really have anything. And it's important to also say that there is still as much, if not more, money in the world right now as there was 4 or 6 weeks ago. So there's approximately $274 trillion in paper and jingle, as I call it, in circulation. So not assets, not houses, not anything else. So that is all trying to regroup itself ultimately as well. And for me, I'm interested in people being in alignment, which means actually the predominant emotion of happiness and optimism and curiosity. I'm very purposely not using words here such as courageous or brave, because they're actually further down the emotional scale. And if I'm in a position of thinking, gosh, I've just got to be more brave about that, what I'm telling myself is that I'm actually terrified, and that there's something that has to be pushed through. So again, there's something here about being in alignment, this wonderful opportunity for happiness, bonkers, again, co-creating reality, not facing it. There's also something about focusing on freedom as an energy, and what that can be as the gateway essentially to getting that real inner nudge about the idea, particularly for serial entrepreneurs, for example, or particularly for people who've been furloughed, or particularly for somebody that really wants to be like, where is the £1 million idea? Come on, give it to me. All of that is being in alignment, and it's sort of thinking, oh, what would be great right now? This would be so good. I wonder how that could come about. And then the other part here as well is appreciation. So one of the tools I give everybody to work with is that appreciation has a greater energetic alignment to our version of satisfaction, which is actually a deeper and more meaningful to us than success, really. And so what we appreciate. So it has both a financial element to it, it has an energetic, expansive element to it. So appreciating whatever is in front of you at any time, going on what I would call an appreciation rumble. Because again, if I'm appreciating what is, I'm completely in the present moment. I cannot time travel. I can't go anywhere. I've got to be here. I've got to be in presence. And even if I'm, and even if I'm just finding one thing, a cup of tea, or the fact that my kid let me sleep for 7 minutes longer this morning than yesterday, or the fact that, the laundry is done, or no matter how small it is, or the pieces of furniture that you have that you loved, or the apartment that you're in that you're still continuing to pay rent or mortgage on. The other thing I'm talking to people about and working with clients is saying there has never been a better time to renegotiate any form of anything to do with money, payment plans, Majority of credit card companies are giving people 3 months holidays. Similarly with mortgage companies, similarly with renters. It is a wonderful time, because we have to understand that in these large organizations, in these corporate, particularly financial organizations, there are people like you and me, there are people who are interested in moving as from what I think of the old paradigm into the new paradigm, moving away from overproductivity, moving into alignment, moving away from effort, moving into effortless, moving away from push, push, push to ding, £1,000,000 idea or £10,000 idea or £150 idea. Let's be honest, it doesn't the kind of idea of the millionaire, billionaire, celebrity, that kind of false idol has absolutely been one of the positive things to become, I think, disbanded during all of this. So again, you know, going on an appreciation ramble, coming back to what is, having the conversations, sussing out why you might feel a bit weird about those money conversations as well. I've had clients who are renegotiating payment plans. Totally fine. It's within my gift to be able to do that. And what happens in that conversation is we are dissolving, as you experience, you know, anything that isn't really love, anything that isn't peace, anything that isn't supported conversation. Because again, in these bigger organizations as well, there are going to be people like you and me who are totally there to support, who are waiting for somebody to pick up the phone so they can legitimately say, how can I help you? Tell me everything. You know, tell me everything you're going through. Tell me your budget. Tell me what's happening. Fantastic. Okay, you know, let's see where we can get to with this. What's going to help? Okay, well, we can't do this, but maybe we can do that. Or, oh, did you think about this? And again, if I imagine that it is a compassionate and helpful universe, and that anyone and everyone I speak to is going to help me, that is also going to make it a much, much easier day to live in ultimately. And for some people, this may feel like a very new practice, and they may be listening, watching, and thinking, Gail, you live in a completely different world. And it's true. I do. I live in a world that I created. I live in a world where I'm working with people to help them to be able to see again what's in the way of you and your peace, what's a myth, what's no longer serving you, who are you really? Who are you really? And then let's allow that to come through so that you can be in this place. I mean, even, you know, to the point of having 10 euros and being like, well, would you look at that? I've got 10 euros. Amazing.
Oh, that is so funny. That is so funny. Well, there are two little stories. It's, you know, the spiral with the whole, I'm not taken care of, I'm entrepreneur, and then I was suddenly sick. The whole past story. And then 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago, I would see myself going down the spiral and see myself, I literally die on the street. So you know, that could go up and I have to kill myself because I don't want to die on the street. It's amazing what the mind can do. And it just popped in, just, you know, I didn't think of this so many years, and it popped in, I think, this morning. And then the other idea came and I was like, but then you can still kill yourself. It's happening. Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, that's okay. So, you know, it's really this. It's the mind just is the crazy. And if you're not watching it, you can just even play with that. And when I talked about that, I had that old story coming up, and that was really emotionally loaded. It doesn't have to be what you also said, when the shift hits you. You know, remember when the holy shift hits the fan? Isn't that great? So this holy shift was that I was asking, I would receive some support of the government that's so unique. And I asked my assistant, could you ask them where they are actually? And she said, very bad news, Janine. There's nobody telling anything. They're so overloaded. But when I had this really of thinking inside of, okay, back off and look at that story with your spirit, then I called another number, and this man was the sweetest ever. I mean, he was so sweet and so helpful. Just hearing his voice, just feeling his compassion. I mean, we just, you know, we were talking and wishing each other health afterwards. And afterwards, I was totally quiet and calm, and I could see that the story was just almost walking away. And I almost felt like, nice try, story. We're done with that story. And I think that's what you're also saying. And the shifts are happening minor. So it doesn't mean that we are millionaires and billionaires in 1 week or during the lockdown. Let's take it as, the next chance to be, the next billionaire. It might happen, it might not happen, but the small shifts and the focus on that, that's really important. Now, money is one of the big issues. To close this wonderful talk, and I know I promised you, and we are already over time, and I knew it's going to be hard with you, but I don't try to overextend too much. Let's focus on health, saying this as the last topic. But of course, health and getting sick and getting the virus is the second big topic. And to me, it could call Thomas, it could be Corona, it could be Thomas. You said it's not about money, it's about a different issue here, which I really like. So, if you say it's not Corona, it's Thomas 18. So what, because I'm so sick and tired of saying Corona all the time. So let's call him Thomas 18. So let's talk about Thomas. Why are people so afraid of Thomas 18?
For me, what is really interesting about Thomas is that are the symptoms, and so that my work also includes the concept of the voice thief. So something which comes and takes our voices and has a very, very, very physical and spiritual element to it, that the voice is taken, and many people will have experienced this. It can be fright, it can be shock, it can be a bully at work, it can be all sorts of things that happen to us, but there is a visceral reaction. The mouth will dry, and the mouth is unavailable, the throat will tighten, the chest will tighten, the lungs will tighten. The diaphragm squeezes, the fear belt solidifies. Now, this is very, very similar to the symptoms that we're seeing. So, we're seeing breath interrupted, we're seeing speech interrupted, we're seeing mouths being covered all over the world. We're seeing the lungs, and which are
so true. That is so true. Yes.
We're seeing the lungs, which are where we hold grief, being affected and impacted. We're seeing the diaphragm, again, also known as the fear belt, tightening and being interrupted. So from a spiritual health point of view, I'm very, very interested in the particular physical choices that essentially the virus has evolved itself into. It is very much an internal discombobulation that happens ultimately. We know, again, as I was saying earlier, in terms of an increase in smoking, again, it's very, very interesting, because one of the things that we have done as a result of post productivity, again, is not breathe properly. You watch a baby breathe, they're so delicious, those gorgeous little bellies are going up and down, from pelvis to throat, everything is moving, and then as we live, our breath shortens and shortens and comes up and comes up. So I would really encourage people to look at their breathing, as in, are you breathing in the first instance? Please check that.
Yeah, I'm just breathing while you're talking, like, breathe, Janine.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so right.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
also
right.
just noticing as well, anything that's unspoken. And again, this is not about everybody suddenly going out and telling one another exactly what the F they think of one another, but just, really noticing if there's anything that hasn't been unsaid, if there's anything that actually has been, often the physical sides of the voice thief, the voice freedom are, we shove things under our tongue, we shove things up underneath our shoulder blades. So again, all of these areas are being permeated by this health interruption, and really, I think as well, there is something interesting around collective grief, and as the Good Death digital ambassador for Marie Curie, so much of my work is around end of life and a good death, and actually it means about having a good life. And for me, there's also something here about, are we actually being given the opportunity to realize that we weren't living? We weren't active in our own life. We were on a treadmill, or indeed in the landfill of our lives as well. And so, and we're also seeing a global pandemic of a fear of death. That too is absolutely happening. And again, if we had less interrupted faith, and I don't mean necessarily faith from a religious point of view or an organized point of view. Some people, might be interested to know, I'm not connected to a church per se, because I'm an interfaith minister. So the world is my church, the world is my temple. It's a wonderfully free place to be, to work with all faiths and none. But what I'm definitely noticing more and more, again, is this idea of moving away from one side of the inner critic, as we've discussed, that is definitely popping its head up. But the other side of that coin is the inner being. So again, if I come back to the inner being in the morning, if I allow myself even 10 deep inhales and 10 deep exhales, if I get the kids involved and the family involved, this starts to do something really interesting. If I can get myself to 10 to 15 minutes of meditation and deep breath a day, I am creating a consistent practice that means I'm engaged with my lungs, my diaphragm. And if my grief needs to express itself, then I will share emotion, and there may be tears. And really also, if you can cry with an open mouth, you're going to experience something quite life-changing, because again, we close up when it comes to grief. We also close up when it comes to pleasure. So basically lots of soft mouth, soft jaw.
True. Yes. Are we talking about sex again?
Yes. Absolutely. But like, who is this reverend woman? What's she? And why don't you have a church, Gail?
So sorry, while you were thinking about the soft mouth and pleasure, I was like thinking of, yes, this is not how but you're so right. You're so right.
So again, I think, just bear witness to, I'm not saying everybody needs to go on a deep dive relationship about their idea of pleasure and or death, but, just, I think there's something really interesting that's happening, and we have tipped the balance. We're in a new world. It is now. There's no, like, when we get to this point, there's no, destination addiction needed here. Each day being met as if for the first time, each meditation being met as if for the first time, each breath experience being met as if for the first time. Take the pressure off, yourself to do something different that you didn't do yesterday. Express anything again that is locked under the tongue, that hasn't been said, or anything that feels discombobulating, or even if you can't speak in that way, simply perhaps being able to say, I'm actually just going to go and sit in the shower for 17 minutes and please don't come and talk to me. And if that's
true. Because I would then go to James.
But again, there's a wonderful opportunity for us to bring, I take all of what's happening very seriously. And at the same time, because of where I am, there is also an understanding that death will come to us all. 10 out of 10 people will die of death. It happens to us all. And when we live a good life, when we are honoring to the inner being, when we spend a little bit more time with the inner being, a little less time with the inner critic, we just start to get clearer and clearer on actually how we want to live our life and where we want to transverse and move to. And that crossing of the bridge is where we all are. We're all crossing just another bridge on another day. And, some people are in different places on the bridge, and some people are holding out hands to help. And whenever, hold out a hand, accept it, and hold out a hand for someone else. And truly, we are seeing transformation in the making. This is an extraordinary time, full of opportunity, full of compassion, full of curiosity. And, you can choose to how you play yourself in this time. And my prayer, my wish, my want is that everybody plays the best version of themselves, whatever that is in the moment that they're in.
I love that. I mean, it's what you're saying is always taking a conscious choice, and it is work when you're in the process, and it's so easy to fall back. It is so easy to fall back and to watch media, see friends who tell you what they heard here or there. Not everybody's maybe as conscious. So, but it's always, again, the conscious choice for gratitude, the conscious choice for appreciation, for compassion, and for co-creation. What I wanted to add to the body part was what I really like is, as a student of A Course in Miracles, you say in A Course in Miracles that the body is neutral. So the body actually has no pain. The body actually has no infection, which is completely crazy for most people when they hear that. But if you are able to just play with that thought and see it as a screen, Like when my body has something, I literally go into screen what is what kind of story is telling right now on my bronchus or on my feet when I torn ligaments. What is the story there? And I would do more and more physiotherapy because I had torn ligaments while this corona explosion was happening. And I could feel it, but I was still not trusting my own voice. When I was trusting it, I could feel I need playtime. Now, playtime is not, not more exercise and more still and don't move. I needed playtime. And literally when I allowed myself to say, I'm going out and, take a bike, I'm going out, have playtime, and I start doing my warm-up from my dance training again, literally it healed 50% already of my torn ligaments. So what I was saying is try to not take it one-to-one. Try to see what the story on the screen of your body is telling you, and just play with the thought that even your body might be so strong and neutral. And it's not about the body, it's not about the money, it's about the story beyond that. And I love that. I also have to give you an amazing, huge compliment from all the compliments I give you anyway all the time. But this is new. It is... I love the way, and I say this to you, dear audience, because I think it's really something for us women, how we carry ourselves and the grace and the confidence. And Gail, to me, always has been a woman of confidence. I was always jealous, say, oh gosh, I have to work so hard for that. And then she has it all wrapped up and owned already, it's already there. But there's so much to live and learn from that. It's the way how you communicate. There is a juiciness in your words, and there is a flowery expression and abundance in the way how you choose language. And that is really inspiring. And that is something that we can do. It just really carries yourself in a way different light, in a beautiful, graceful way. Sometimes you see it with women. They look beautiful and then they start to open their mouth and you think, all the beauty is gone. I mean, sorry, that's judgmental, but that's happening. So I'm just saying this is not just about outer beauty, and you have both, but it's about how you carry yourself in your language, and language can also build and can destroy. So before we complete this and talking about juiciness, let me just ask one question. What is the mistress part?
Well, I'm not a master. So to be a master of ritual and ceremony felt very, very unfeminine. And
That's
so
true.
and the more I've been teaching ritual and magic as well to a certain extent, and just the ritual of living, the ritual of being aware of all of the different words, all of the different ways we can communicate. The reason language is so important to me and to many people is because it allows me to take it from surface, or from A Course in Miracles, or from our teaching as we know it, from head into heart, into hara, into the center, or into stone, into water, into wine, or the way of three. So I'm really interested in how to continue to do that. And as I was teaching more and more last year around magic and ritual, even the simplicity of, again, how you make a cup of tea or your bed, or how you bathe. Do you even like the smell of the shower gel or moisturizing you're using? Particularly with women I work with, they've completely switched off to fabric, to scent, to pleasure, to, skin being the largest organ. And sometimes we just throw anything on it and then wonder why we feel unwell. So again, bringing people back to everyday ritual, bringing people back to everyday connection, very, very simple. And I just thought, again, it's interesting. It has been quite a masculine dominated environment to be a master of ceremonies. And I just thought, no, I thought actually I was being named mistress of ceremonies, mistress of ritual more and more. And it's interesting. It was also the second part of this is also to say it's very interesting as a minister. Because again, we will often see women going into ministry, or indeed the priesthood, but you would not have a woman define herself as a priestess within organized religion necessarily in the West. So there's also something here about playing with language, about playing with reaction, about seeing how people respond and what that means, and indeed doing away with these very, very old archaic interpretations of what a a mistress might be, for example, that is simply someone who is very much in their power, as I am, working with the wise women lineage, working with the ways of nature, working with the ways of coaching and mentoring, but from a completely heart-centered, radically connected way with life and with love and with what my inner being is really curious about how we can live from. So it was also, the final bit of that is also why I took the title Reverend, as we could when I was ordained last year, because I live very much in reverence to life, and that's the original meaning of Reverend. So in this role and in these words, if I can help people explore and eradicate any of those prejudices that they might have around the idea of what ministry might be, or what a mistress might be, or indeed what a reverend might be, then I'm in my purpose again, and living in purpose and living on purpose is basically everything that I teach and that I work with.
No, I so understand. And I like that juiciness when you talk. And, we've been talking about sexuality, but we're so one-sided with sexuality, and particularly for women, sexuality is life force. It's a whole, it's, and the juiciness and the surrendering into a bath, into ascent, and making that and spoiling yourself. And that's what you embody. And I think this is what you radiate. So there's so much more to that. And I think we owe this to ourselves. And that's the wisdom of sexuality of women. Apart from having the juiciness with a partner, it's really in your own juiciness and stand and have that grace and how you choose your life. And I think that's something that you're really a role model for. And I'm so happy that we had this talk. We postponed it a couple of times. I know we got it. I was like, when I didn't see you, and then I was like, oh no, please make this happen. It definitely is a talk that needs to be continued.
Agreed.
And
yeah,
I so adore that. I hope you have a side bedroom in Scotland too, because I definitely have to spend some time. And it was so much fun. I know, but I stopped talking because I could have, tons of story we could share. But please say hello to your wonderful, handsome husband.
I will.
James.
Thank you.
He has been such a blessing when we lived together for a few weeks. And yes, to be continued. There's nothing else I can say. There's absolutely to be continued until soon. And as the lockdown is hopefully starting to open up again, that people start to move and embrace, and we come out of our retreats. But of course, the transformation is not finished. We are going to continue to transform in a hopefully new consciousness at that time. Having said this, dear audience, thank you so much for watching. This was Gail Love-Schock, wonderful name, Reverend Gail Love-Schock from Scotland. And wherever you are, stay healthy, stay safe. Have a soulful, beautiful, and juicy rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.